What's up, y'all? Welcome into another edition of DNVR Rams Live, presented by our friends at Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are listening from. It was an epic sports weekend here locally. My Nuggets and Avs got a couple of dubs. The Broncos beat the Raiders. And of course, CSU men's basketball got a very important win over CU. It was an epic matchup. We're going to break that down. We'll play some post-game clips. I'll talk about the basketball, which was high level. It was fast-paced and entertaining. Not a lot of defense played either way, but it was just a good weekend to be a sports fan. I feel like Stevie and Eastbound and Down right now. You know, I feel incredible right now. 10 feet tall, strong as an ox. I did want to start, though, with just a couple of thoughts on the CSU-CU dynamic. I want to talk about Tad Boyle's post-game comments, which came off as incredibly sour grapes. He's always a sore loser when he loses. That's been consistent throughout his entire career, especially against CSU, but you can go back and look at some of the comments he's made after like losses to Arizona and Kansas and some teams like that. He's a guy who, when he doesn't get his way, tends to throw tantrums. He certainly was pissy pants on the sidelines throughout the game. And it wasn't the best officiated game. I'll be real. There were calls both ways that had me confused. There were lack of calls both ways that had me confused. Unsurprising if you know the history of that crew. They're not great. But the reaction to CSU winning this game was so incredibly predictable. And I'm going to try to not go in circles like I have with Buffs fans for 15 years. I genuinely think I could take both sides of the argument at this point, because I've been having these same debates with the same people for so long that I know exactly what the retorts are going to be. Rams brag about this, so CU says this, so I go here, you go here, yada, yada, yada. It's the same stuff year after year. And it's just incredibly convenient to me that when the Rams win a big game, and this was a big game, anybody trying to argue otherwise are just being a troll. It's incredibly convenient that it's CSU's Super Bowl, and Ram fans need to just calm down because, you know, this game doesn't even matter to the CU side. But when the Buffs win, you know, now this game matters a whole ton. They're going to throw it in our face. They're going to bring up the series history. Now, all of a sudden, this is an important rivalry, but when they lose, just conveniently, it's the Super Bowl card. I'm just over it. You don't get to play both sides, and especially in the last 5 years or so. I mean, it's always been a condescending and pretentious attitude from Boulder that is largely unearned in the 21st century. Sure, at least on the football side, they have been dominant against CSU. The Ram fans don't have a whole lot to stand on when it comes to, you know, clapping back on the football side of things. But with basketball, who the hell do you think you are? I mean, you're going to finish second to last in your league, or last. I mean, I understand the Big 12 is an incredible conference, but for Tad to come out in postgame, here's a quote: "Time will tell. We'll figure it out. I'm not going to change what we do. I'm not going to change the standards of this program. Our standard is 6 or fewer made threes for a game." That's absurd. For a game, they had 10 first half and 8 in the second half. I don't know what to say. Credit goes to CSU. They played their butts off. This was their Super Bowl. We knew it was going to be like this. And what was frustrating to me is we came back and took control of the game. The Buffs did obviously have a great run in that second half. Again, this was a high-level basketball game. And it's unfortunate that because Tad Boyle was such a sore loser post-game, that like this is the talking point to kick things off. But it's just hilarious to me how entitled and pretentious that side acts when it's 8-7 over the last 15 matchups. I mean, Tad has one more win against CSU than he does losses, and he's out here acting like this is CSU DU or something. And the Rams didn't even act this way when they lost to, DU, and I didn't act this way when I went to Boulder the last couple of years and watched CSU men's basketball get their teeth kicked in by the Buffs. We didn't throw a fit. We didn't, oh, yeah, it's your Super Bowl. I didn't act like that way when CSU football should have lost to Northern Colorado. I talked about how I felt like the Bears kind of got screwed, and how bad CSU played, and the attitude that they hit us with after the win is just, it's so predictable. And Boyle's a great coach, but the sore loser routine has gotten so old, especially given his lack of success in this rivalry. Maybe it should be your Super Bowl, Tad, because you haven't done very well in it. You ducked CSU in the Roddy Stevens Jr. year when we all know how that game would have gone. It was soft as hell. And I think it's kind of a perfect representation of that fan base as a whole. And I have plenty of friends that are Buffs, family that are Buffs. I am most certainly speaking in generalizations here. And obviously the loudest minority rarely represent a fan base in their entirety. There are jerk CSU fans out there. We all know that. But the lack of self-awareness is stunning. And again, it just feels like a perfect representation of the attitude over there. And it's even funnier given how classy Ali Farokhmanesh was, who did nothing but praise the program and Tad Boyle's, history as a coach. And I felt like this weekend was kind of fitting, given the general tone of the two fan bases right now. And whether you're a hater or not, this is a game that's good for the state of Colorado. If you want basketball to grow, you need these teams to play. And that's what Ali said. We're going to play that clip in just a second. But I want to play a clip here from our guy, Ryan Green. This is of the court storm. This is what drew the, it's their Super Bowl reaction, which is so annoying. And I said that when some CSU fans tried to throw that in Wyoming's face after the border war. It is the biggest crybaby, sore loser, sour grapes, bullshit attitude. And I hate when the Buffs do it. So I can't support when CSU fans do that either. Just throwing that out there. But here is a video of an epic court storm. The atmosphere was incredible. And if CSU fans being passionate about this rivalry and supporting their program, I don't know if you've been to a hoops game in Boulder recently. It's dead. It's like a morgue. Maybe you guys should have a little bit more passion. That would be my retort to your supposed burn or dig at what's been a highly successful basketball program. We're seconds away from a Sweet 16 last year. If they call a travel on Derek Queen, the Rams are playing for a Sweet 16. Who the hell do you think you are? Anyways, here is a video of the court storm. It was an epic atmosphere. Shout out to Ram Nation, a true sellout. No open seats to be found in the house. It was awesome. And this video captures that. That's what it's all about, guys. I understand that in the emotion of things, it's easy to get snarky. I'm not perfect. I made a snarky comment after the border war about them storming the field, against an awful CSU football team. And then a couple hours later, when I'm out of my fifis, I had to retract it because I thought to myself, this is the type of stuff you're supposed to support. This is what makes rivalries fun, the passion, the energy, the students embracing it. Like, this is why this game is so epic. And it really was a high-level basketball game between two talented and exciting teams. I'm going to enjoy watching the Buffs in Big 12 play. I don't think they're going to be super successful in what's a juggernaut of a league, the best league in the country. I do think they're going to be a headache, though, for some of those top end teams, and it wouldn't surprise me if they pulled a significant upset or two. I mean, Isaiah Simpson is, he's a pro, or Isaiah Johnson, excuse me. I'm combining him and KJ. They both those guys are fun, and have enjoyed watching both of them over the years. But he was a problem, man. The true freshman for the Buffs, he is nasty. If they can hang on to him, CU could be pretty dangerous next year. And I just wish there was a little bit more self-awareness, and an ability to see irony, because the reactions have gotten so predictable at this point that, again, I genuinely feel like I could do a skit where I just take both sides of the opposition and argue and go in circles, because we know exactly how this is going to play out. Oh, little brother, it's your Super Bowl. Okay, well, again, maybe Tad should prioritize it a little bit more. Maybe he could take some notes from Ali Farokhmanesh as well on how to be a class act postgame. Here is Ali, his intro statement following a 91-86 win over the Buffs.
This game's always awesome. Like it's a great game for the state. I think if you want to keep growing the game of basketball in the state of Colorado and Colorado State need to play, and it creates an atmosphere, and kids come to these games and they see a Kerry Booth, Josiah Sanders for them. They see kids from Colorado out there playing in front of sold-out arenas, and I think that's what makes it special, right? And we have two good teams like this. It creates an atmosphere like that, and you can't really get a whole lot better than from an offensive standpoint, 91-86 game. But that's what makes this rivalry fun, and it's everything that you want about it. And huge credit to Colorado. That's a really good basketball team that we just beat. And like I said earlier, Tad Boyle is one of the best coaches in the country. He's probably the best coach in the history of Colorado. And whenever it's done for him, though, it's been fun watching his teams over the years and being a fan of them. They're a good program, and he's done a hell of a job at Colorado too.
Ali 1, Tad 0 on the court and optically. Just all class from Ali, exactly what you would expect. And, I think there was some intention with the comment about, if you want basketball to grow in the state of Colorado and Colorado State need to play, because, again, Tad's been trying to get out of this matchup for years. He did duck the Rams in the Roddy Zay year, and if it were up to him, they wouldn't play. I would understand it if CSU was a dumpster fire like they were late in the Eustachy era, and Eustachy actually had quite a bit of success against Tad, which I think is part of what makes him so salty against the Rams in the first place. Because, Medved and Ali and Tim Miles back in the day, those are three highly classy dudes. You have to really be stretching if you're trying to find reason to have beef with those guys. But on top of it, it's a good game for both programs, because it's going to be a Q1, Q2 type opportunity for both teams a lot of the time, depending on, where they're at in the metrics. If you lose, it doesn't kill you. If you win, it's a quality win for your resume. It makes all the sense in the world for them to play. And when you see the atmosphere like we had in Fort Collins, like this is good for college sports, y'all. Like I thought it was certainly the most rockin' we'd seen Moby in quite some time. There've been some fun games the last 5 years, but it was rowdy. I'm gonna sound a little bit like an old man here. I could do without the fuck CU chants every 2 minutes. I feel like they really land home if you kind of pick the opportune times to let those set in. But again, I'm a million years old, so it is what it is. I'm just glad to see the students amped and into the game, and I'm not going to ever shame them for being passionate. But this was an epic atmosphere. It was a lot of fun. Not a lot of defense played, although I did feel like the Rams had a couple of key stops late. Jorgensen had a wall up that was pretty significant. They finally started to contest some stuff in the paint. You look at CU had 56 points in the paint. Like, there were some stretches where they're just getting dunks to Dak at will, and it was tough. Stops were few and far between in this one, but they did throw some zone late, and here is Ali kind of talking about that and the impact that it had for the Rams.
I just knew man wasn't working. But no, and they did a great job executing it. First half, they did a great job against us, CU did, and getting those lobs and getting those easy threats. When Bang got Dax down there, you don't have to throw a great pass. You can throw it anywhere. He's going to dunk it. So we adjusted to that, had those top guys playing it, because they had 2 guys on the baseline, 3 high more, so we didn't need to play the wings. The wings could stay up longer, and we could have those 2 guards sitting back more playing the high post more. And I thought that was a big adjustment in the second half for the 2 defense, because in the first half we tried it and it was awful. So then we adjusted to it in the second half, and Kyle made some big plays within the zone, that tap up on the other one and then the wall up on the other side. It was that tiny little adjustment to the 2 defense that I thought helped get those couple stops in the last 4 minutes.
You know what I love about Ali and Medved was the same way? They don't try and dumb things down. They don't talk to you like you're stupid and you can't grasp what you're watching in front of you. I love how he'll go into the little nuances of what they are trying to achieve on both sides of the basketball. Big time win for the program. Needed it for the non-conference resume. We're going to keep talking about it. We'll dive into some of the numbers. Let's shout out a couple of our partners, though, and we'll keep it rolling. I want to talk to you guys about Brunt Workwear. Their best-selling Marin boot is built for the toughest job sites. They're completely waterproof, so you're good if you're in mud or standing water. You know your feet are going to stay dry. These bad boys are durable. You know, you're going to be on muddy farm fields or oily floors, you know, depending on what trade you're working. And the Marin 6-inch soft toe is built for workers across a variety of trades, which is cool. They're highly versatile, highly durable as well. What's great about the Marin is, unlike with a lot of boots, you know, you're not sacrificing comfort for durability. And founder Eric Gerard, he grew up blue collar. He started Brunt Workwear after his friends in the trades kept talking about how, you know, some other brands, they weren't evolving in a positive way, maybe even more so a negative way, leaning into being fashion brands, and instead of, you know, leaning into the blue collar people who have always made those brands relevant in the first place. With temps dropping and the holidays coming up, it's time to treat yourself or the hardworking man in your life to real comfort. Skip the throwaway gifts. Get him something built to last with Brunt Workwear. Our listeners get $10 off their order with the code DNVR at checkout. That's bruntworkwear.com. Use that code DNVR. Order today. Let them know that you heard it here on the show. Hey, Colorado, you should stop by your local Dick's Sporting Goods. They've got the hottest apparel around. They've got DNVR gear at most of the Dick's Sporting Goods in the metro area now, which is really crazy to think about. They've got all the top footwear from Nike to Adidas Originals, Hoka, DNVR, and more. Plus, score the latest equipment for baseball, football, soccer, basketball, golf, you name it. If it's a sport, they've got gear. They've got a lot of camping stuff. I mean, Dick's has a little bit of everything. Get your gear fast or free with curbside pickup at your nearest store. Easy shipping from Dicks.com. Remember, every season starts at Dick's. If you're listening live on YouTube and wouldn't mind giving us a thumbs up, I appreciate it. Say what's up in the Toyota chat. Keep your questions, comments rolling if we don't get to it right away. I will try to get to as many of them as I can at the end of the show. We do have some more takeaways to get into from this CSU-CU game, and then we will talk about an interesting press conference with Jim Mora on Saturday. I saw that apparently Vic Lombardi on Altitude kind of threw some shade at Mora for not going to the 5A state title game. I get what he's saying. Like, it is an opportunity to establish relationships potentially, but I think it's also overlooking some important things. One, it's a dead period, so you're not allowed to talk to the high school players right now anyways. Two, how locked into the game do you feel like, you know, Dave Logan is going to be on the game day itself of the state title game? You know, like that's not the moment to schmooze. They've got responsibilities. He's got responsibilities. He's got to focus on roster retention, building a staff, the portal in January on top of, you know, his presser on Saturday, and he's hosting the UConn flips, you know, and it's lacking context to rip him and be like, he should have been there. I get it on the surface. Big time program like Cherry Creek, you need relationships with that program. They're playing in your building, but it's a dead period. Signing day has already happened. And with, you know, the coaches having their heads elsewhere, like how productive of a meet is that really going to be? That's what I would say to those that are in their head or in their feelings over something that is, to me, seemingly a non-story. Let's put the stats up if you wouldn't mind, Alyssa. Let's talk about this win over CU. Again, this was a high-paced matchup. It was a lot of fun to be at in person. The last 2 games in Moby have been epic, and the talent level for both of these programs is high, and that's been the case. I've been fortunate over the years on both sides to get to cover some really talented dudes. In 2023, you had KJ Simpson and Cody Williams, and God, I was trying to remember Cody Williams' name. It's driving me crazy. And obviously you had Zay and Neek and all these talented guys. And over the years, Dinwiddie and Derek White and all these like good players. It's just fun when both programs are relevant, when they're capable, and they certainly scored at will in this. I said it before, I'll say it again. Defense was not great on either side, and both teams have a lot of work to do on that side of the ball if they are going to ultimately push for the tournament. I think the likelihood of the Buffs doing that's not super high, but you never know. You pull off a couple of key wins in conference play, you're going to get a lot of respect in a league as deep as the Big 12. This was a must-win scenario for CSU. It absolutely was. I saw some people giving me a little bit of crap, and they meant it well intended, over saying this was a massive win. No, this absolutely was a massive win. Your chances of getting an at-large bid without it were slim to none, borderline impossible, without like running the table in league play and then making it to the conference tournament title game and like falling in a tight game there. Maybe then you could have made it, but with that loss to DU and with the metrics across the league looking like what they are right now, this is probably a 2-bid league, maybe a 3-bid, depending on what happens with San Diego State and Utah State. And then obviously everybody else is kind of on the fringe. Wyoming is much improved. Like you could see a team like them maybe making some noise in the Mountain West tournament. You never know with UNLV. They're so all over the place. New Mexico, I think, will figure it out under a good coach and Olin. But you needed this one if you were CSU, because you don't want to be dependent on running the table in Vegas to have to get there. It was a lot of fun last year. One of the most fun games and processes I've ever got to cover in person. But you needed this one. And it was a big game. And that's why the students were amped. They understand the stakes of it. We're an intelligent basketball audience over here. Maybe they aren't on the other side. Maybe they should support their program a little bit more. Maybe they should make it less of a morgue over there at the Coors Event Center. I don't know. But this was a big win against a talented team. And I still have some worries because the defense, particularly in the paint, was so rough about what this team's ceiling ultimately is going to be. I think if they don't elevate on that side of the ball, realistically, it's going to be tough to expect to make the tournament, because you're not going to be able to hit 18 threes in every game. I will say at this point, you're almost 10 games in, this is who they are. They're going to shoot a ton of threes. They get good looks. They hit a lot of them. So it's hard to fault them, but there are going to be games like Virginia Tech where they don't fall with as much consistency. And I thought the Rams on that day against a really physical team, a team who I do think will be in the tournament, they were able to adjust well, and they got to the line. They worked the paint some. Didn't feel like they worked the paint as much as I would have liked them to in this game, especially given some of CU's struggles this season when it comes to defending the post. I feel like there was an opportunity potentially for Jorgensen to, make a bigger impact early there, but he was huge down the stretch. Kerry Booth had a big bucket late, kind of a quiet game from him, but that and one late was huge. But obviously, you get just a monster performance out of Josh Pasquarelli in this one. Another good game from Jorgensen as well. Quiet 21. He's been so good. We're probably undervaluing what he does from a game-to-game perspective at this point. But Pasquarelli, to go 16 of 18 over a 2-game stretch from 3, that's insane. That's genuinely Steph Curry shit. That's not hyperbole. That's Jamal Murray when he gets in fuego. He is probably the best 3-point shooter I've ever covered. Seeing Jimmer in person was unreal. I think Jimmer is still the best 3-point shooter I've ever seen in a college game in person. And Kendall Williams, what he did that one game was absurd. There have been some really good ones. Gian Clavel was capable of getting red hot. His efficiency wasn't what Pasquarelli's is, and his release, he's just got such a good looking jumper. And they needed it. CSU does not win this game if they don't hit all those threes. We really struggled to defend CU, especially in the post. God, there was a frustrating stretch in that first half where Bengat Dak had like 4 straight just rim-crushing dunks. He's a freak athlete, and you knew he'd be a problem. Didn't think they'd give up almost 60 points in the paint. If you do that, you're not going to win very consistently, just being realistic. CU was really good in this game. They were 62% from the floor, 7-19 from 3-point. I mean, that's not bad. It's 37%. 54% at the line. That hurts. You missed 6 free throws and in a 5-point loss, but the Rams missed 4 free throws too. They had 18 points off of turnovers. Felt like they did a really good job, especially in that, whatever it was, like 20-2 run in the second half where they were turning the Rams over. They were putting a lot of pressure on CSU defensively on ball, similar to what we saw in stretches against Virginia Tech and Wichita State in the MTE, and the Rams kind of struggled with that. And I think when that starts to happen, we've now seen a couple of instances of Ali putting Jevin Mooney's basically at the point. He's kind of in that Neek prototype role. I wrote about it. Go check it out on the website. But, he's a wing, but he has the ability to initiate things offensively. He's one of the best drivers on the team. He's strong. He's hard to knock off his line when he starts, putting his head down and going to the hole. And he's been a really steadying presence for this team. He just does a little bit of everything. He's top 3 in blocks and steals. He's probably top 2 passer on the team. Pretty good jump shooter. He just does the little things. And he has been really big now, I would say, and in a couple of wins in the MTE. And then this game against CU as well. Obviously, Pasquarelli doing his thing from 3-point is massive. I can't state that enough, how crazy it was to see this shooting performance. I was sitting next to RC, one of our social guys. He's a Buffs fan. He knows ball, though. He's a high-level basketball fan, and he's just shaking his head at some of those shots, and some of them were crazy. I mean, a couple of those threes from Rex Steiner were absurd. Butler hit a 3 late. JoJo hit a 3 late. That was like as the shot clock expired, and it was a totally disjointed offensive possession. Really looked terrible, and then you hit that kind of 3, and it is so dejecting. I mean, we've been on the opposite end of that, where a team just seemingly can't miss. The Rams got a lot of shooters, and they had a lot of key guys contribute in this game. 5 different players with double-digit scoring. That has been what's worked for this team, has been that it's, everybody kind of does their part. It's not Neat Clifford, carrying them game after game, going for 25 plus. And that's not to say that he's the only reason they had the success they had last year. You guys know how much I love Jalen Lake, and they had a ton of dudes that were important. That a couple of them are now playing for high major teams. But I love the selflessness of this basketball team, and I really feel like Jevin Mooney's is kind of the perfect representation of that. And even guys like Rex Steiner, who could get in their feelings about, how JoJo gets long stretches trying to run things and how they put the ball in Jev's hands at times instead of him. But the nice thing about that is it opens up some opportunities for Rex Steiner off the ball, which is what they tried to do with Zay a couple of years back. When you're as good of a 3-point shooter, and Rex Steiner right now is insane, as Ivy was saying in the Toyota chat, both him and Pasquarelli are top 50 3-point shooters in the country right now. CSU as a team, the best, if not the best, one of the best 3-point shooting teams in college basketball. I just feel like there's a collective buy-in from this roster that's quite impressive, given how many moving pieces there were, how much production and experience that you had to offset after last season. It's really been an impressive coaching job, and they do need to elevate defensively. It's not perfect, but we knew that there were going to be some up and down elements with this team, because it was just impossible for that not to be the case with this many new guys. But you've put yourself in a position now, so long as you close out the non-conference slate here with a couple of key wins, you can't afford another landmine. That is for certain. But you've set yourself up nicely here going into the league slate, and the conference looks wide open. Utah State has been the most consistent team for sure. They're human, though. I mean, South Florida thumped them, and CSU handled South Florida with ease. So it's a weird year for the conference. It's kind of a shame that it's probably only going to be a 1, 2, maybe a 3 bid league after the last couple of years of 4+ bids. It's been awesome, especially with how much it pisses off the fans of the bigger school. I live for that stuff. But I'm really high on this team's potential still. I do think once they get Bemba back, you will see them elevate a little bit defensively. I don't think they're going to be a great defensive team, but I think there's room to grow there. I think JoJo and Jace Butler consistently getting more minutes is going to be big on that side of the ball. But they need Bemba back for sure. You're getting pretty great play consistently out of Jorgensen. His leap this year has been something else. I truly feel like he is the most improved player in the entire conference. But Kerry Booth has been awesome. Quiet game from him, but a big bucket late. I'm really excited about what this team can be moving forward. And this was a big, big win for the Rams. This was much needed for the resume. And it was just big for the fan base, right? Like, it was brutal football season. It's been fun to have a couple of weeks here of being able to be excited again, between everything that Jim Mora is doing and the success of the program under Ali. He is, meeting the admittedly lofty expectations that we had in the preseason. The thought process post Medved was essentially that this program shouldn't skip a beat. And to the credit of the staff, it hasn't. So I'm loving it. I'm excited to be at Moby tomorrow night. We're going to move on here. We are going to talk a little bit of football. Shout out to our guy Nick here in the Toyota chat. So just joined in. Bus fans have been in denial about CSU's basketball program rise for years. I love that they're still sleeping on us. I love it too. Again, the saltiness, especially from Boyle, like fans being fans, that it is what it is. I've come to expect it. But the saltiness from Boyle just makes it that much sweeter, especially when Ali took the high road. Like you couldn't have asked for a bigger dub than what CSU men's hoops got this weekend. All right, let's shout out a couple of partners. Let's talk Jim Mora, talk about what we learned from him during the press conference before the game on Saturday, and we'll play some clips, some stuff that stand out. I do want to talk to you guys about Aura frames. Holiday season is here. It can be stressful trying to find gifts. I don't know about you guys, but it's tough to shop. For my parents, I feel like I get them the same stuff every time. My grandparents are borderline impossible. There was one time back in the day, I got my grandpa a hat that he came to the mall and picked out. I worked in a store that he picked it out, gave it to him for Christmas. I was like, I don't think this is the right one. What are you going to do? Maybe you should get him an Aura frame. It's the gift that keeps on giving. It really is cool. I've got one in my kitchen now. You get to, see all your favorite memories, post photos, videos. It's super easy. You just download the app and upload them. You got unlimited free photos and videos, so you don't have to worry about running out of space. You can personalize it as a gift. You can pre-upload photos and send it to somebody so that, they open it and, oh man, I'm in my feels. Look at how beautiful my children are or how cute my dog is. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com. Get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames, named #1 by Wirecutter. When you use the promo code DNVR at checkout, that's auraframes.com. with the promo code DNVR for $35 off. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get in time for the holidays. Support the show. Mention us at checkout. Terms and conditions do apply. I also want to shout out the homies at Branded Bills. Whether you need snapbacks, truckers, fitteds, beanies, or tees, Branded Bills has you covered with performance and style. If you're looking for custom gear, maybe you own a small business. Maybe you just want to have a logo. Maybe you decided, I just want to have a brand. I want to put it on a hat. You can do that with Branded Bills. Branded Bills has hooked us up at ALLCITY and DNVR. Check that out. By the way, we just dropped some new hats today, I believe, that are really cool. Branded Bills, they have you covered with the best custom headwear. They've got a partnership with CSU as part of their on-campus collection. You can see one in the background here. I've got 3 different Branded Bills hats that I rock all the time. So much love for them. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. All right, y'all. Here is the intro statement. It's a couple minutes. So, stay with us. Don't go anywhere. But I think Ram fans are going to enjoy this. Jim Mora just continues to say all the right things. Not surprising. The dude's a football lifer. He's been in this a long time, but it really does feel like the Rams got the right man this time around. But here is kind of an update from Jim Mora on what he's been doing, since we had heard from him last, an update on the staff, just kind of what this week has been like. And he talked a lot about his excitement to be at CSU. He keeps talking over and over again about his family and just how stoked they are to be here. It's been pretty cool to see how excited they are to be a part of the Fort Collins community. But here's the intro statement from Jim Mora on Saturday afternoon.
Well, I just want to start by, again, expressing my appreciation to President Parsons and our athletic director, John Weber, and Scott Sidwell, the deputy athletic director, who were so instrumental in helping me get here. And it's just an honor to be here. I can't wait to ingrain myself in this community, support and serve the players, become a member of, Ram country in a meaningful way. My family is so excited to be here. My wife is on a plane right now. She went home for about 2.5 days, packed everything up. I thought she was going to fly out tomorrow, but she just couldn't wait. So she'll be here at 6:05, landing in Denver. And so that would mean we are officially moved here, and we wanted to make it happen quick because it's just so important to us to immediately become a member of this community. The Fort Collins community, the Colorado State community. It's important to us that the players that we get to coach see the unity of the family, because everyone preaches family, and I think you have to demonstrate it so that it has credibility. But just really excited. It's been a whirlwind of a week. Obviously, made my way from here on Monday night back to Connecticut. I thought it was really important to have a chance to address my former team and those players. It was very, obviously you can imagine, emotional, but very meaningful and uplifting. And, I'm really pulling for those guys to get win number 10. And then I was able to come here and meet with all the staff members individually, look them in the eye, hear their story, get to know them. The thing that stood out in talking to all the staff members is that incredibly dedicated and committed to this university, really good people that care about the student athletes, that care about this program, that care about this university. And that was just really refreshing. And to hear the same things over and over and over again about the support from John and from people at Colorado State, it just further, to me, emphasized the fact that I made the right decision to come here. Now I have to make sure that I prove every day that John made the right decision, and that's my goal, and I try to live up to that every day, and I will. So, amazing thing to me was the way that Alex and the staff was able to keep that signing that incoming recruiting class together. That's not common. That when there's turnover like that you have such a commitment. And again, that speaks to the quality of people here at Colorado State. So my hat's off to all those guys. And then I've gotten a chance to meet some of our players. I've probably met with, maybe 30 or more. I don't know the exact number. And the quality of the person is what stood out to me. I don't know them as football players yet, but I can tell you the first impressions that I've got is that these are kids that want to work for it. They operate without entitlement. They're committed to this program, this community. They love this university. They love this team, and that's a great place to start. You want to have good people on your football team first and foremost, and that those good people become good football players. So we're in the process of putting together the staff. There's really nothing to report on that right now. That's a fluid and evolving process. But the one thing that we will do is we will get great people that are committed to helping develop our student athletes, that are committed to this community, committed to the university, and add value to this program. And they will be everyone always says it, the best and the brightest, but they will, there will be diversity, there will be energy, enthusiasm. They'll all be experts at what they do, and yet people that are really willing to learn as they go forward. So, it's just been fantastic. And then I got to go to the basketball game the other night and watch our women's team, and I'm excited to be here today to support Coach Ali and our men's team in a really big game against that team. That team down there. So, yeah. So it's been a great week, and I couldn't be more excited to be here.
Great stuff from Mora. A lot that Ram fans are curious about. Obviously, what is this roster going to look like? What are the conversations with current players? How are those going? I do think him saying specifically things are in flux when it comes to the staff is important. At another point, he also talked about how ideally they'd already have the staff in place, but you don't want to rush things because the goal is not to just construct a staff as quickly as you can. It's to try and get the best possible guys. The trouble of that is good coaches are in high demand this year, especially in a incredibly chaotic cycle the coaching carousel has been unlike anything we've ever seen. So while your plan might be to bring a lot of those UConn guys with you, coming off of back-to-back 9-win seasons, some of those guys could potentially be in line for gigs at bigger schools. So everything that I've heard is the plan for right now, plan A, if you will, is to bring over Gordon Samus, the offensive coordinator from UConn. I think he wants to bring over quite a bit of his staff from UConn. That makes a lot of sense, but we'll see how all of that plays out. Obviously, some of those guys are still over in Connecticut. They've got the bowl, but now that Jason Candle, Toledo's coach, has been hired as the full-time coach at UConn, I imagine a lot of those dominoes are going to fall pretty rapidly here over the next couple of weeks as we get closer to the transfer portal period in January. A lot still in flux when it comes to what this team is ultimately going to look like. I asked Mora, what is it like trying to evaluate a roster? How do you even go about something like that, not knowing what players are even going to be in the picture? And he smiled and then basically just said that, it's a really fluid process for sure. And that's tough because you might invest a lot of time and, scouting some of these players that you'd like to retain, and, you're campaigning to keep them, and they still very well may leave, but you have to do it. You've got to put in the groundwork if you're going to have an opportunity to succeed. I love how excited he is to be here. I know that sounds like a small thing. You'd be surprised how many coaches in a variety of sports never really move to the community that they're working in. I don't believe Adazio's wife ever even came out to Fort Collins. Maybe she did once or twice, but he spent a lot of time out in Cape Cod. Larry Eustace spent most of his time in California, not in Fort Collins. It certainly wasn't on the recruiting trail. So to hear Mora say that stuff, I know that a lot of people hear that and they're like, no, duh, you're going to be living where you work. It's not always the case. And from everything that we've heard from just him being such an outdoorsman and like the genuineness that seems to radiate off of him is really intriguing. And it feels exciting to have a guy that has the track record and success and prestige of Jim Mora to be this jazzed and to be this stoked to take over the program. So it's crazy. Aaron says Adazio was married, ! I believe so. Maybe I'm not right on that, but that's what I was always told. I want to play a couple of more clips though of Jim Mora. He gave some insight into recruiting Colorado. He got asked what was kind of a setup question by one of the news stations, although it was well intended. I know the guy that asked, and I'm not trying to throw shade his way because I know how this deal works. Sometimes question. But with the Ross Valley kid, basically being told you're not going to realistically have an opportunity to compete here. There were some people upset, feeling like they're not going to prioritize local kids. They're not going to recruit Colorado enough. That, according to Mora, is not going to be the case. He understands the importance of it. Also, he's not so much concerned with recruiting rankings. He had some funny thoughts on all that. So we'll play a couple of more clips. Let me go ahead and take a quick breather real quick, and then we'll play those. I got to shout out a couple of our other awesome partners. A lot going on here. All right. Y'all choose chill. That's what our friends at Coors Light encourage you to do. It's easy to get worked up. I get worked up all the time based on the stupid stuff that I have tweeted at me. It's easy to get stressed out about the holidays, shopping, hosting family. How am I going to satisfy every member of the family? We got to be here. We got to be here. We got to be at this party. But if we're at this party, it means we can't be at this party, and this person's going to be upset. The magic of the holidays is less magical the older I get, I'm not going to lie. But you want to make sure that you're not letting that bring you down. You don't want to be the type of guy that wears all his emotions on his sleeve and punching walls or something silly like that. Choose chill. Take a deep breath. Go for a walk. Do some yoga if you have to. Whatever you got to do to put yourself in that chill state of mind, do it. Then when you're kicked back, when you're relaxing, maybe you got the Avs on, maybe you got the Broncos on, make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Visit CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Beer. I also want to talk to you about Toyota. Toyota have been friends of the pod, friends of DNVR for a long time now. For generations, though, they have built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado living. What's awesome about Toyota, they offer a little bit of everything. If you want just a small compact car, you're good. They've got an assortment of SUVs and pickup trucks and whatever you need. But whether you're conquering the off-road trails, maybe you're one of those outdoorsy types that goes, roading and camping, and you got to go deep into the woods, Toyota's got you covered. Maybe you just want to cruise around town. You need something simple, something reliable, something that's going to get good gas mileage. Toyota's got you there as well. 17 models available, all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, more low and zero-emission vehicles combined than any other automaker. Check out some of the awesome trucks like the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. Check out the RAV4. Check out the Grand Highlander. Toyota's a proud partner of CSU Athletics. They're the official vehicle of DNVR. Toyota, let's go places. Okay. We got a question here from Tacos El Pastor. Will next year be a transfer portal heavy roster? I think to an extent. I think a lot of that is kind of TBD still, though. It kind of did. How much are you able to retain? I talked a lot about how there's 5 or 6 sophomores, freshmen in the trenches that maybe were a little inexperienced this year and got thrown into the fire. But I think you'd love to hang on to those guys because I think the foundation is intriguing there. Can you hang on to one of, or ideally both of, Lloyd Avant and Javion Kennard? How many of these receivers end up dipping? I think you're certainly going to have likely a transfer portal quarterback starting, but I don't know if that's a guarantee. Both these freshmen that are coming in are exciting. I wouldn't bank on that, but Darnell Kelly, he's got legit athleticism. He's a true dual threat, and playing for a guy who coached prime Mike Vick, I think he would know how to optimize a guy like that. But I'm really high on Carter Emanuel too, and I think flipping him was a significant win. And when you hear what Jim Mora, what he says, when talking about him, you get it. He's got a great arm. I talked about his poise. Mora talked a lot about his creativity, though. So here's Jim Mora talking about why it was so important to him to get Carter Emanuel in this program.
It started obviously at Connecticut, as you said, and Carter is he's a playmaker. I'm not going to stereotype him and say he's this guy, but he's in the mold of a Patrick Mahomes style of player. He's creative. Oh, there we go. It's all right. He's creative, good ball security, good decision maker, smart young man, great family, good student, really good person, a guy that picks up and understands concepts quickly. He can adapt, he can adjust, he can come in here and be competitive right away. He's actually on campus with his family right now. We got those 6 young men that flip from Connecticut to here are all coming in the next couple of weeks just because they get to do that now. And we want to make sure that they haven't been here. We want to make sure that they feel the comfort level that I feel, that I've conveyed to them, and want to make sure they feel that as well.
Great stuff. If you're in the mold of Patrick Mahomes, and I think it was important that he added that distinction. There will still be people who don't have listening comprehension skills and run away with that. Oh, look what he said. He said he's Patrick Mahomes. That's not what he said, but you get what he means. He is somebody who can extend the play, who can throw off platform, who can improvise, who's a big, strong athlete with a big arm. I get what he is saying when he says that. The last clip, though, that I wanted to play here of Jim Mora is him talking about local recruiting, because that's always going to be a hot topic here in Colorado. Don't ask him about recruiting rankings, though, because my man does not give a damn. Loved what he had to say here.
I don't know if you noticed, but like the top 10 or 15 recruits in this state went elsewhere, not a single one stayed at home this year. Just curious if you noticed that, and 2, how do you view in-state recruiting kind of in the future of your program?
In-state recruiting is a priority. I said it on Monday, and I used the term put a fence around this state and pull everyone in tight to this community and make them part of our program and the Colorado State community, the Fort Collins community. But it's imperative that we develop great relationships with the coaches and the decision makers and the influencers in this state. And we create a program that is really enticing and inviting in a place where they grow up saying, hey, I want to be a Ram. I want to go to Colorado State. That's my dream. And it all starts with building those relationships with the coaches and the high schools. And so we intend to do that. I would also say this is, you made the comment the top 10 players in the state went elsewhere. Well, who determined that they were the top 10? I didn't. Our staff didn't. So while we will look at rankings that other people put out there, what's most important is that we're the experts and that we put our eyes on them. I've evaluated hundreds of thousands of football players at every level. So I'm going to believe my eyes before I believe anyone else's eyes. So where they're ranked, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. That's just a number on a piece of paper.
All right, so a couple of things here. Obviously, that statement is somewhat tongue-in-cheek. It's not to say that recruiting rankings don't matter whatsoever. CSU did offer a lot of those top 10 kids that ultimately ended up leaving. I've talked a lot about that. When people clamor for local recruiting, you got to remember that you're trying to land the right guys. And realistically, there's probably going to be about 20 kids that sign D1. Of that, the amount that will truly end up being impactful D1 players, it's a small handful. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't recruit Colorado heavily. When CSU has been successful, Colorado kids have always been a strong element of the foundation of the roster, and that needs to continue to be the case. But I do think it is important to remember that recruiting rankings are subjective. And also, I think you got to be careful when it comes to the validity of recruiting rankings in this Colorado, just given the fact that high school football is not... It's not a priority in the same way that it is in Texas or California or Georgia or Florida or some of these, Ohio, like the football hotbed areas where you have a ton of high school coverage and you have a ton of people who are qualified to make these rankings. It's one or two people that are making a lot of these rankings in Colorado. And I just, how accurate are they? And, when you look at the history of basically any program, but you look at CSU, how many of those kids that come in as 4 stars never do a single thing? How many unranked guys or 2-star guys like Weston Richburg and Crockett Gilmore and all these players, Rashard Higgins, go on to be legends? You just got to take them with a grain of salt. I'm not one of those guys that's going to say they're completely irrelevant. They're not. And the point of them is based on professional traits is essentially what you're doing it on. Do you have the traits that will translate to the NFL? That's what the whole, rating system is supposed to be predicated on, but it's imperfect and it always will be. And while you want CSU to have success, and it's a fun PR thing when you get to be like, look, CSU signed 5 kids and they're all ranked in the top 10. And hopefully you are, signing some of those kids in the top 10. There's no guarantee that they're actually going to be anything. And a lot of the times have we seen guys who, are ranked 15th, 16th, whatever in the state of Colorado, they come to CSU and they have a great career. Look at Ola BC Johnson back in the day, or Barry Wesley was an unranked, unrecruited walk-on who was a starter by his second year in the program. So that's part of it too. Some of these kids you're trying to convince to come in as a PWO, and if they earn the opportunity, then that's great. And if they don't, then so be it. And if they go on to have success elsewhere, then that stings. But a lot of these guys who people start getting in their feelings over and try and use as examples of why this is somehow a failure of CSU to recruit Colorado, I would say, what are those guys doing elsewhere? A lot of those kids that end up going P4 right out of the gate, transfer 2 or 3 times, don't really land. And then, some of those guys who end up at smaller schools, some of them make noise. Sure. I don't want to use specific examples of kids that have left in recent years and have gone to smaller schools and didn't really do anything because it's not personal against them. But there have been a couple of examples of like local receivers that end up at the Dakota schools and they're not even seeing the field there. So was this some big loss for CSU? I don't know. Doesn't seem like it, but it's a balance, and you need to you need to emphasize Colorado, but I am going to trust the evaluation of somebody like Jim Mora, especially moving forward. I'll be interested to see what those in-state dynamics look like moving forward. I guess we'll say that, but I do love the quote there. Mark wants to know, can CSU be a suitor for the Old Dominion or Harvard quarterbacks hitting the portal? Do we have enough NIL to be competitive? Yeah, I mean, compared to schools of similar size, we most certainly have enough NIL to be competitive. Are we going to outbid the Texases of the world? No, you don't have a chance, just realistically. I mean, that's obvious. I do know that Jim Mora follows both of those quarterbacks on Twitter and has since before he got the job, so he certainly had an eye on both of them. My guess is the Harvard quarterback might be a little more realistic. It sounds like the kid coming out of ODU is going to have some pretty big time offers. We'll see, though. Maybe somebody like that will prioritize a spot where he's basically guaranteed to be a starter and is going to have a chance to prove his way to the NFL versus, you know, you could do what some of these guys do. You chase the check, go to a big school, and then you don't play. I mean, look at Mikey Keene at Michigan. He left Fresno State where he would have been the starter to be the backup at Michigan. Like, was that worth it? You got the payday, I guess. But you got to be careful in the portal, and that's why it's such a tricky balance. Before we get out of here, I'll give an updated Mountain West power ranking. We can kind of just fly through it. It doesn't need to be some long, dramatic thing, but this is the 16th and final edition of the 2025 Mountain West Football Power Rankings. Bowl results don't matter to me. The biggest fall, pour one out. CSU dropped 10 spots from the preseason initial ranking. Biggest jump, you can probably guess, New Mexico, who went up 9 spots from the preseason ranking. CSU comes in at number 12. Nobody who had expectations did less with them, you know, more so than CSU. San Jose State also in that conversation, you know, picked to finish second in the league. They come in at number 11. I've got Nevada at 10 talent-wise. I don't think they're better than CSU or San Jose State, but they exceeded expectations, technically speaking. Wyoming, 9, Air Force, 8. Those teams are very much in the same vein, but Air Force just a little bit better. They had the head-to-head. I've got Fresno at 7, Utah State at 6, head-to-head sorted that one out. And then, you know, the top 5 has basically been in flux throughout the season. But I've got Hawaii at 5. Really bummed that they blew the opportunity to play for a title. San Diego State at 4 after losing to New Mexico a couple weeks back. UNLV 3 after losing to Boise for a 5th time in like 2 years. That tweet from the UNLV broadcaster who called them equals last January is the gift that keeps on giving. And then I've got New Mexico 2, Boise 1. I think New Mexico is a better team than Boise is right now. I think if they played, New Mexico would win. I think Boise winning the conference has to put them at number 1, though, just objectively. That's where we're at, Mountain West Football Power Ranking. So pour one out for the Rammies. It was a season we would all love to forget. The college football playoff rankings are out. Unsurprisingly, they have made a mess of this whole situation. Whenever you have a committee, I always think back to that famous Mike Leach speech and him, you know, just mocking the entire idea of all these people who may or may not even be qualified to give a voice in the process. Having some type of saying like Condoleezza Rice was in the first CFP playoff committee. Like, why? Doesn't make any sense. I actually wish they would do the BCS rankings. I don't think the rankings were the problem. I just think people felt like there was teams like 03 USC who deserved a chance. The rankings, though, were pretty representative of who the top teams were. Use those to dictate it. My guess is they probably go to 16 teams next year, which is funny. Add more teams. You know, they just keep adding teams. That'll fix the problem. You know, that'll fix it. Two G5 teams is fun. They'll do everything in their power to make sure that never happens again. What a run from Indiana. They're good enough to win it all. And then the last thing I just wanted to end with here is you're going to see some comments about bowl games going away altogether, and that's not going to happen. It's just not. The ratings are still good, despite the fact that none of the players or fans really care about them. The ratings are good. Gambling is probably a big part of that. So because of that, if the ratings are good, networks are going to dictate that they continue. I do wonder if we maybe see a few less of them. I do think there's some things you could do to make it more interesting. I think maybe you should cut 20% of the fat when it comes to the bowl games, make it more of an achievement. Maybe you should have to win 7 games, maybe even 8. If you won 8, you had to win 8 games to make a bowl. I think that makes that feel like a legit accomplishment at that point. And maybe it puts a little bit more, on the line for the teams. I don't know. You got to get people to care. But when you've got teams like Notre Dame taking their ball and going home, it's not good for college football. They should have been in the playoff. They're objectively a top 12 team, but join a conference. I will say the biggest gripe I think Notre Dame fans have is that basically you're getting kept out of the playoff because you didn't play for a conference championship game, but the conference championship games didn't seem to matter for Ohio State or Alabama. Ohio State loses, they drop 1 spot. Bama gets throttled, they move up in the rankings. So where's the consistency of it? I think that's people's biggest beef more than anything, but I don't think bowls are just going to go away, but I do think you have to tweak the system a little bit. I was going to give some thoughts on the bowl matchups. We'll save that for the next show on Friday. Shout out to everybody that tuned in with us. We will switch to a basketball power ranking on Friday moving forward. Much love, y'all. Thank you for the support. Got to talk to a lot of awesome people in Moby on Saturday. Thanks for listening to the DNVR Rams podcast presented by Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off your first order. Always proud to be. This is our state, baby. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.